What would you do if you found yourself in a town filled with hollows? Hey guys, my name is Leia and welcome to Anime Recap Pro. For those who love adventure, you will love today's pick, Made in Abyss Season 2. But before we get started, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you haven't seen our Part 1, then I highly recommend you do so. At the end of Season 1, Riko now has a white whistle, enabling her to enter the 6th layer of the Abyss, the capital of the Unreturned, after overcoming the severe difficulties of Idofronts. Season 2 begins with a younger Vueko standing behind a ship's deck and studying the star compass he's holding. When she looks at it, she's brought back to the tale of her awful, useless foster father to brag about while abusing her. When he was younger, he went out to sea to go coast hunting. He discovered a ship spewing smoke into the water with his crew. After getting on board, they found that the crew had perished in several extremely strange ways, including one person being burned without any flames nearby, another being hacked in half, and the third having vomited out organs. Only one crew member had lived, and he was so traumatized that he could not speak. The last crew member started deliriously muttering about the Golden City and how his crew didn't reach it, as Vueko's foster father picked up the star compass after finding it on the ground. The crew member passed away shortly after that. Vueko's foster father used to tell her this tale while torturing her to remind her that he was unique, while she had no value since he believed he had been selected to find this golden city. Vueko gets seasick from thinking about her past and the ship's motion, so she dashes up on deck and pukes into the water. A storm destroys all other ships traveling beside them as they continue their objective. After a long trek, they ultimately arrive at their objective, which turns out to be the Abyss. They come across a native tribe and try to communicate with them. The inhabitants receive the star compass from Vueko as well, which they learn that one can reach the Golden City by entering the Abyss, chasm in the middle of the island, but that one cannot ascend back to the surface. They discover a native child has followed them and that they are ready to enter the hole. Beluf informs the rest of Ganja that the young girl had been relinquished to the Abyss since she cannot bear children after deciphering a recent tattoo on her back. When the curse suddenly strikes another Ganja member, with the youngster being able to communicate what had happened abstractly, Wazakyan agrees to Vueko's suggestion that they use her as their guide. Vueko predicts the mysteries they discovered and the unforeseen occurrences as they began exploring the Abyss. The viewpoint changes as Riko's group approaches the altar of the absolute boundary. First, through the membrane of the altar is Menya, then Riko, Reg, and last, Nanachi. When Riko rubs Prushka's stone, the altar abruptly falls into the sea. Nanachi forewarns her not to touch it once more while they are traveling. The gang observes a huge aquatic animal pass by. The altar then moves through a layer consisting only of heaps of bones and dead bodies. Riko announces with joy that their last dive has started. It takes longer to descend than intended, and after seeing Menya relieve itself, Riko acknowledges that she must do the same and is unsure of her ability to wait. Reg urges her to do it right away because the incense from the altar would cover the stench, and they don't know what is in the 6th layer. The gang discovers city ruins after the altar lands in the 6th layer. The 6th layer piques Riko, Reg, and Nanachi's interest, so they decide to look into it. They learn that the 6th layer is inhabited by extremely dangerous monsters and has a hot, desert-like atmosphere dotted with numerous ruins. Riko tries to send another mail balloon on the surface to let Nat and the others know that she's alright, but it is swiftly intercepted by soaring fauna. An unknown entity is silently watching the group. Riko discovers that her white whistle has been taken when she awakens the following morning. Nanachi finds the thief's trail of evidence after he successfully recovered the mail balloon and entered their camp undetected. Reg detects the thief's scent and they pursue it until they come to a substantial building with a solitary door. With no other leads, the group enters the building with a force field guarding the entrance to ward off the curse. This enigmatic entity keeps an eye on them. The group discovers a village inside the building full of what appear to be hollows. Majikaja, one of them, welcomes the group and offers to dive them into Riko's white whistle. Riko, Reg, and Nanachi are taken by Majikaja to a caver who is redesigning Riko's white whistle to allow it to reach its full potential. The company is then shown the rest of the hamlet, which is resistant to the curse but cannot be left behind by the hollows who live there. He also clarifies that Hamlet depends on the trade of value. As they explore the colony, one of the hollows picks up Menya and treats it roughly, injuring Menya. Riko's distress at Menya's wounds causes the village's defense mechanism to go into action. To make up for Menya's diminished value for Riko, it snatches the valuables and the organs of the offending hollow. Riko uses this just-discovered value to reserve a bed at an inn, but the contaminated food makes her unwell. Majikaja says that Faputa, the princess of the hollows, has appeared outside of the village as Reg and Nanachi observe a commotion. She goes to the village entrance, where she meets Faputa and her robotic companion after realizing Faputa must have bought Riko's white whistle to the village. One of the ganja was instantly devoured by a monster when they previously came across a group of robotic beings that welcomed them into their sixth layer. Darkly, Vueko understood that they were still in danger, despite having arrived in the Golden City. Faputa confronts Reg, who believes that he have already met her. Faputa, fearful of being seen by the people, kidnaps Reg and takes him to her hiding place. Reg doesn't remember Faputa, which confuses and hurts her. Faputa then vents her fury at Reg for choosing to travel with Riko instead of her. Reg chooses to go back to Hamlet after realizing that Faputa won't teach him anything. Still on the way, he notices a shower of eternal fortunes and burial nameplates that Orth has dropped, which makes him wonder what is going on above ground. After Riko recovers from her food sickness in the village, she leaves to look for Reg and Nanachi. Riko is saved from being taken by many hollows by the one who accidentally injured Mania. Riko makes friends with the hollow, calling her Ma, and expresses her gratitude for the assistance. They proceed to a restaurant where Riko meets Wazukyan, as seen through the eyes of a hollow. Nanachi learns from Majikanja that Midi is in Belof's care in the meantime. To their horror, Nanachi discovers Midi alive and well after traveling to Belof's den in disbelief. Vueko appears to be imprisoned somewhere else, along with several incomplete hollows. Reg tries to return to the village but gets disoriented and ambushed by monsters. He is saved by Faputa's robotic assistant, who explains that the robot is an interference unit and was made to gather information on the Abyss. Reg observes that the interference unit and he are similar, but the interference unit acknowledges that it lacks information on his model. Reg is then guided back to the village, which he claims is called Iruburu by the device. Riko converses briefly with Wazukyan in the village and learns that he is one of the 3 sages, the Iruburu founders. She then decides to look inside a nearby cave that the hollows are afraid to enter in the hopes of finding Reg and Nanachi. Instead, she meets Vueko, who says that she was locked up for attempting to stop the founding of Iruburu because of its sinister beginnings. Riko releases Vueko's shackles after realizing she can assist her and asks her to direct where Nanachi is. Riko is surprised to learn that Nanachi surrendered their freedom to the Belof to prevent Belof from exploiting Midi as a food source. Vueko leads Riko to Belof's house. Belof explains that Bondrud once traveled to Iruburu and brought Midi along. Belof loved Midi so much that he gave up a sizable portion of his body to turn her into a replica. Belof responds that Riko would have chosen between giving up her eyes, both her legs, or half of her internal organs if she wanted to purchase both Nanachi and Midi's freedom. Riko is discouraged from making the trade by Majikaja and Ma. The hollows are being attacked by a creature that then enters the village as Riko tries to figure out how to save Nanachi. According to Vueko, it is a component of a custom known as the luring, in which the villagers attract monsters to the settlement rather than leaving to go hunting. Riko finds her white whistle, now carved into its actual form, while the fight continues. Mugi, the eatery's owner, cautions Riko to stay away when the battle shifts to the favor of the locals. Instead, Riko meticulously studies the beast before setting a trap that renders it helpless. However, Ma and the other villagers are still being attacked by the creature. Preshka's spirit encourages Riko to blast her white whistle, which summons Reg and gives him the strength to vanquish the monster. Wazukyan congratulates Riko and Reg and advises her to get a chunk of Faputa in exchange for the release of Nanachi. Since they don't remember seeing Vueko before, Mugi and Majikanja express their doubts about the inn, and Vueko reveals that she is one of the original 3 sages who created Iruburu. She offers to explain the history of Faputa and Hamlet to Riko, Reg, and their friends after observing that Wazukyan became afraid of her after seeing Reg's might. Well, that's it for today. Want to find out how far down the abyss Riko and the gang reach? Then stay tuned for part 2.